paint the Indomitus Primaris Lieutenant. And he's started out already a little bit different. I sprayed him with some... What did I spray him with? I sprayed him with some of the Fang from Citadel. And I purposely sprayed him with it while it was too thin. I overly thinned it, I guess you'd say. And that makes it sort of work like a contrast paint. As you can see, it sort of flows off the edges and stays on the bigger parts. And that's going to help because we want the Fang under the next color we're going to use, which is rust gray. We want it underneath that, though, because rust gray is slightly transparent, or translucent, if you will. And so the darker color underneath it will help the blue come out more. So I'm just going to cover all the armor with this color. And the armor is probably going to be the part that takes the longest on this guy. Thankfully, he does have a lot of other colors on him, so he'll be a little more interesting. But this armor is the Space Wolf armor that I'm painting is 100% the method that Duncan had on the Warhammer YouTube channel. I lifted it straight from that. And anytime you can paint a scheme that Duncan has painted or created, you know you're having a good time. So I'm just covering all the bits of the armor with this rust gray. Making sure I get all the nooks and crannies. Backs of his legs and his backpack. And I really like this this method of painting Space Wolf armor because if you're batch painting especially, each step takes long enough that by the time, say, if you're batch painting 5 figures, by the time you get to the end of that 5th figure with the first step, your first figure's dry and ready to go. But even on just this one figure, the steps can take long enough that the first parts of the miniature you painted will be dry enough to start the second step on. Which is always nice. Never want to have to be, if possible, you don't want to have to be waiting around for drying time. So that's him completely covered in the rust gray. Just going to rinse off the brush. And then the next step is going to be some panel lining with some Agrax Earthshade. I'm just going to, instead of like a normal wash that you might put through or put on the whole miniature that would darken down the entire thing, I'm just going to use a small brush and just put it in the recesses of his armor. So I'm going to start down here because this is where I started with the first coat, and I'm just going to put it right in the little cracks between his armor. And this can be time consuming, but it gets a good effect. And if you go a little bit over and get too much of the brown on armor, you can always go back and add more of the rust gray to tidy it up. I'm sure I'll have to do that. I always do. Just get them in there. And in there. And normally you wouldn't necessarily highlight, or rather shade, a blue-gray color with a brown. But it makes it it gives it a more natural feel. And for Space Wolves, they're based on animals, so having them feel a little more natural more than completely just outer space sci-fi can actually help to sell the effect more. But, of course, if you wanted to, you could always use Null Oil instead of Agrax Earthshade for this step. And Duncan has when he paints this scheme, he has the luxury of saying, and we'll come back and start the next step. And then he cuts and he does it all real quick and then comes back to the video. But on a live stream, you don't have that luxury. So I'm going pretty quick here because I know I can touch it up afterward. Just making sure to you don't have to get every single line between panels, but I like to get the big ones at the very least. Get in there. Eric asks, do you have any tips for painting orange armor easily? Orange armor. Well, you definitely would want to start with a light base coat, because orange is similar to yellow, where the pigment is larger, and so it covers much less smooth, I guess. That was a bad sentence. It doesn't cover as well. Go with that. And so you definitely want to start with a light base coat. But then probably what I would do is start with the contrast color that is called Griff Charger Orange, I think. Start with that because that's super easy. You just put the contrast on it. And if that is the orange you're looking for, then Bob's your uncle, you're done. But if not, then you already have an orange base sort of laid down, and so a normal orange paint, like a normal layer paint, will lay down on top of that much easier. And if you don't get a completely solid coat of it, the orange contrast underneath will shine through instead of your primer shining through. So I would say start with that first. You might get lucky though, and just the Griff Charger orange contrast paint is exactly what you're looking for. I actually have some orange marines that I painted. I'll send you a picture after the stream, Eric. Those I painted with I think I just painted them with layer paint. They were prior to contrast being a thing. And it was kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest, how I did it. But you never know. Almost done with this stuff. I just gotta make sure I get the backpack here. And I'm just gonna do the whole interior of the head socket, whatever you call that. And if you see me occasionally put my thumb on the miniature, that's just wiping up a puddle of Agrax here that isn't in the right spot. Just gonna do the grill on his head. And this guy's funny. He's got a helmet, if you notice, that is considerably similar to a certain army of mine. I think some of the new Primaris guys might be taking a couple of requisition trips to Titan recently and getting some equipment from them. Primaris Grey Knights would be awesome, to say the least. So I'm just going to grab this line in the back of his shield, and then I'm going to move on to the next step, which will be edge highlighting. Alright, so that's all the brown applied. And you can see it's overly applied in a lot of places. It's leaked out onto the armor and that sort of stuff. But we're going to come back and fix that. And this edge highlight, which is going to be Fenrisian Gray, is going to assist us in that even more. Eric says he based black when he painted orange the first time, yeah, that would definitely be rough. You could get lucky and get an orange that covers really well, but I would imagine they'd be few and far between. So I'm just going on the panels here and putting Fenrisian gray on the edges. Not being too careful with it. Especially in this project where I'm doing an entire box. You're going to get a lot of the looking goodness of the army is going to come from the fact that it's all sitting next to each other. So you don't have to be super careful about every single model getting a perfect edge highlight. And even if you're not doing commissions like this, if you're just painting your army, it's a good thing to keep in mind that for instance, I was just talking to a friend of mine who was painting some Khorne Berserkers, and every single Khorne Berserker isn't going to win a Golden Demon Award. But when they're all together, fully painted, fully based, they look damn good because the whole unit is sitting next to each other. So each model doesn't have to be a masterclass for the army to look good. And I definitely know some people who... Well, I guess I should say, I know some people who can make every single miniature a masterclass, and it's not a problem. Which is fine. I personally don't have that skill. But I know a lot of people who, they're not bad painters, they're just new to painting. But they think every miniature needs to be perfect. And every miniature definitely doesn't need to be perfect, especially in a game like this where you're going to have 50, 60 miniatures on the board. Or more in some armies' cases. If you want to spend a little more time on some leaders, sure. But your 2 units of 20 gaunts, they don't need to be master classes. So I'm just going to grab the edges that are most prevalent on here, so that when we look at the miniature, we'll see all 3 of these colors. That being the undercoat, the wash, and the edge highlight. Yeah, do post the finished product of the orange. I'd be curious to see it. The other, or the thing that can come in handy when doing a light color like orange over a dark color, is that it forces you to get a very solid coat of color down, because if you see any of the black sticking through, it will look bad. So it forces you to really make sure that your coat is smooth and covering all the way, which can, in the long run, be a good thing because your miniatures will look really good. But if you want your miniatures to be done quickly, or at least in a reasonable amount of time, and don't want to spend hours recoating orange over and over and over, a lighter base coat is definitely something to think about. All right, so I'm going to do the front of the shield. Just get it. All right. And then the top. Do these little swooshes. All right, so we're almost done with the edge highlighting. Edge highlighting can take a while if you spend the time to really get every single edge. But as you can see, you don't need every single edge. Like, I didn't get every edge here, but you can see the highlight on the miniature. And from the top of the table, or from above the table, you'll be able to see that the miniature is highlighted. And that's really all you want, is does it look like you did more than just prime it? If yes, then in my book, you're all set. There's also the option to dry brush things like this. And for this kind of project, I would actually consider dry brushing instead of edge highlighting. But because these have to match the rest of an army that I did several years ago, and I edge highlighted for that, in order for it to look coherent, this needs to be edge highlighted also. But I'll have to, once this Indomitus box is done, I'll do some miniatures on stream that require some dry brushing. And I think a lot of people downplay dry brushing as the easy way out and doesn't look very good. And if you do it wrong, it definitely can not look good. It can ruin a paint job if you do it wrong. But if done with a correct brush and with the correct amount of paint, you can honestly get very similar results to edge highlighting with just a dry brush. So we'll have to do that on stream one of these days. Unfortunately, nothing in this box really lends itself to dry brushing. Just going to get the backpack up here, and then this step will be done. And we'll do some quick cleanup with the base coat, and then we'll move on to some details. This guy has a lot of edges. I was thinking I was almost done, and then he's got a whole other arm. Alright, that should do. It's definitely enough that you can see it's highlighted. So then I'm just going to go back and take the rust gray again. And I'm just going to clean up some of the spots that have a little bit too much ink on them, or a little bit too much highlight on them. So like, for instance, right there on the kneecap, that kneecap is almost completely brown. We don't want that. So I'm just going to dab in the corners a little bit of the underlying blue. Just for the visual interest. I use a thick, fluffy makeup brush for dry brushing. I think it works way better than an actual dry brush. You are absolutely correct. A thick, fluffy makeup brush is the absolute best way to do it. There's a couple of YouTubers who have been advocating makeup brushes for dry brushing for years, probably close to 5 years, I think. And it just recently, within the last year or so, has exploded. Like, everyone is like, you have to use a makeup brush. They're the best brushes. And usually, you know, when someone says you have to do something, you probably should not do that thing. But in this case, the makeup brushes are the absolute best decision. And they're super cheap too. You can go to Walmart and get them for next to nothing. And because you're not spending money on an actual miniature brush, when your $2 makeup brush gets messed up and won't work anymore, throw it away, get a new one. So yeah, we'll have to do some dry brushing on stream. Uncle Adam, yep, that's who I was talking about. That's who I was talking about, who has been on the makeup brush kick for years now, and it finally seems to have percolated out into the rest of the community. And I'm sure, I obviously don't watch every single YouTuber, so I'm sure there are others who have been on the makeup brush kick for a while. But it seems like nowadays, any YouTuber you watch who's doing any dry brushing is like, get a makeup brush. And I'm like, I think that Tabletop Minions may have steered you onto this path. Which is good. I'm glad he's doing well. He's probably one of my favorite YouTubers. He's very down to earth, and definitely doesn't fall into the like cult of celebrity for himself. Even though he definitely could. He has quite the following nowadays. So just finishing the touch-up. I'm going to grab this shoulder pad. I'm not going to do this shoulder pad because that shoulder pad is going to end up yellow anyway. So if it's a little messy now, doesn't matter. I'm going to show you a trick with the yellow that I recently discovered. That as far as I know, I didn't steal from anybody else. But maybe I did. Who knows? So now I think I will do the silver. He's got a lot of silver bits on him. And for that, I'm going to use Iron Breaker. And this is going to be the gun, the Iron Halo, probably some bits on the shield, all this dangly stuff in front of his waist, all this kind of stuff. Not the Aquila on his chest, because that's going to be in bronze. But all this other stuff. I don't have to be super careful because we're going to paint the robe, obviously. But I always like to try to be careful with metallic paint. Because if I get metallic paint on the robe, say, and then go to paint the robe, if my base coat isn't 100% solid, if this like kind of bluish tint shines through, it's not the end of the world. But if a shiny metal bit shines through, you'll notice. And so I always try to be careful when I'm putting metallic paint on things. Do the pommel of his sword. And what else needs to be silver? I always try to, I've said this many times, but I always try to get each of the main colors of a model on each part of the model so that no matter where you look, you see them. So I always, like on some of my guys, that part I just painted silver on the head is just the blue color. But because he's not going to have much silver in this area, because this will be bronze, this will be silver, but all this right here, there won't be a lot of silver, so I make that silver. It means that stuff doesn't look exactly coherent across the entire army, but I think it comes out looking better for each model. So I'm going to get this Volkite gun all painted here. Only the second Volkite gun in all of 40k, as far as I know. I could be forgetting one, but as far as I know, it's this Primaris Lieutenant and the Tartaros Terminator Sergeant are the only two Volkite guns. At least in the Space Marine Army. I wonder if the Mechanica might have one or two. As far as I know, these are it. Just going to get that all silver. We're going to come back and add a lot more color to that Volkite gun. But for now, just going to be silver. So then I'm going to flip over. All this stuff is going to be bronze. That's going to be bronze. So I think because the handle of the sword is going to be bronze, I'm going to do the scabbard detail in silver. Just so there's not a bunch of bronze all clumped up next to each other. Have I tried snakebite leather over silver? I might have at some point, but I haven't recently for sure. I should give that a try. I'm doing bronze on these Necrons, and I didn't use snakebite leather over the silver of them, honestly, because I didn't have a pot of it. The last pot I used, I ran out, and so I used Agros Dunes, thinking that would be cool, and it ended up looking terrible. So I had to put another color over it, and now I'm already committed to that. But I'll definitely give a snakebite a try over silver. Or if you happen to have a picture of you trying it, feel free to link it, and I'll take a look at it. Snakebite leather is just a great color, though, so I imagine almost over anything it's going to look really good. It was a good color back when it was a a normal paint, and it's a great color now that it's in contrast. This should be, besides the shield, the last silver detail on this miniature. Everything else is going to be bronze. All right. And I think I will come back to the shield because I may end up doing that in bronze, actually. But I am going to move to the bronze now. Oh, cool. Used it on a Caradron Overlord. That's cool. Once this Indomitus box is done, I'm planning on getting some Age of Sigmar on the stream. Seem to be getting a pretty decent group going around here. So that'll be cool. Probably have some of those new elves on the stream for at least a day or two. It's funny. I can't see who reacts to things, but I just saw a heart fly by, and I was talking about Age of Sigmar, so I'm just assuming it was Landon. He's our local Age of Sigmar mascot, while also being our local Age of Sigmar expert. It'd be fun to do a King of the Hill tournament where Landon is the final boss. You must beat Landon in order to win. You must beat Landon with the friend ender. 18 Kurnoth Hunters or whatever it is. That would be a hell of a tournament. Although it might just be all of us showing up and paying Landon, and that doesn't sound very fun. At least not for us. Oh yeah, I didn't. Thank you, Peyton, pointing out in the chat. The bronze I'm using is Brass Scorpion from Citadel. I did forget to. Got going on Age of Sigmar and forgot to mention the paint color. Well, we'll blame Landon. Get him to take that heart away real quick. I think I've decided I am going to do the shield in bronze. I think it would not be good in silver. I think it'd start to look too ultramarine-y in silver. So we're going to do it in bronze. Oh yeah, I saw that angry face going. That's what we like to see. Alright, there's also this detail on the back of the shield, which I guess will be bronze also. Nope. It's going to be something else. I don't know what yet, but it's not going to be bronze. So I'm just going to get the front of the shield here. And this brings up an interesting point with some Space Marine models. A lot of Space Marine models will have things like purity seals on them, right here and right here. And those are obviously made of, paper or maybe cloth or something like that. But then they'll also have things like this scroll work in the middle of another symbol. So this symbol on the shield is obviously, at least in my mind, is obviously a metal of some sort. But then the question comes in, is this a scroll overlaying the metal? Or is that a part of the symbol? And I think if I got out all my Space Marines from all the eras and lined them up in the order I painted them in, I bet I wouldn't have done two in a row the same every time. Sometimes I'll do them in the same color as the purity seals, and sometimes I'll do them as part of the metal. In this case, I think I'm going to do it as part of the metal because there's two purity seals right next to it, and that seems like a lot of the parchment color all together. I'm just going to get bronze on all of this symbol here. And we're going to come back and rebase coat the purity seals, so I'm not too worried about getting the bronze color on it. It's going to be base coated and then have a contrast paint on it. So like I was saying about you don't want your silver to show through over here. There's no danger of that here because of the pigments that are going to be on top of it later. Just get all that bronzed up. Get all that bronzed up. This guy just has a skull on his shield. That's how you know he's a lieutenant, because he doesn't have a full-on body nailed to his shield. This guy could only afford the skull. That's actually how you become a captain in the new Primaris forces, is you find a baby marine and you kill him and you nail him to your shield. That's the rite of passage to become a captain. No need to look that up. You just accept that that's the truth. No need to verify. Alright, so that's... Oh, nope, I missed the top here. Alright, so that will be all the bronze. Just going to grab this little bit of bronze here that spilled over. That's better. Alright, now I think I'll move to the black. And for this I'm going to use Abaddon Black from Citadel. And I'm just going to do the joints in his armor. This stuff right here. In this, and I think I'm going to do the line around the shield in this color. I'm going to do the handle of his sword. But he has Volkite? What do you mean he has Volkite? I agree, he does, but what are you referring to? Just gonna grab that. Alright, I'm going to get the back of his knees, also in this black. Good. Well, that should be that. So then, normally with the other Space Wolves I've been doing, like this guy for instance, his gun, like the body of his gun has been black. But in this case, because I'm going to make this Volkite glowing purple, if I put a black there, it's going to be very hard to get a glow onto that. It's doable, but I don't want to go through the trouble. So I'm not going to paint the case of that black. This gun, I'm just going to leave this gun silver. But I will do is do the ammo clip in black. So at least there is some black on the gun. Oh, I see. He may only have a skull on his shield, but at least he has a Volkite weapon. That is true. He does have one of the rarest weapons in the Imperium, at least according to how many models are armed with them. I closed the black, but then remembered I want to do the edge of the shield in black. So I'm just going to be very careful and paint the edge of the shield. And I'm probably going to miss and go over onto the blue at least once. But I can always pull the blue back out and go back over it, so. It's very interesting to see these Primaris guys with storm shields. I wonder if that will mean anything for older Primaris models. Will they be able to take storm shields now? I'm just imagining a Gravis captain with a storm shield and how awesome that would be. Of course, Games Workshop never even released the Gravis captain in an individual box, so something tells me it's not going to happen. Oh, yep, I missed and hit the blue right there. That's okay. We'll come back and get it afterward. Then I'm just going to do the sides of the shield, or the shield here. And I think after this, I'm going to do the yellow shoulder pad. So I found a trick. Yellow is, like we were talking about earlier, with orange, is very annoying to get good coverage with. Comes out chalky, or doesn't cover, and you have to do 60 coats of it or whatever. But we're gonna get a trick here. It's gonna make yellow easy peasy lemon squeezy. Just gonna grab the bottom of that. All right, then do the back of this real quick. This is more work than I was anticipating, doing the line on this shield. But I think it'll look good when it's done, so. All right. And the last little bit here. All right. That's done. And I'm just going to fix that a little bit. And then we're going to move on to the yellow. And for the yellow, I'm going to use a combination of a normal paint. I say a normal paint, a layer paint. Actually, it may be a base paint. A normal Games Workshop paint and a contrast paint combined. So the normal paint, let's see, it is a base paint. It's going to be Avril and Sunset. I'm just going to open this up first so you can see it. This is how a lot of the Avril and Sunsets will come out. As you can see, it's incredibly thick. Like if I just touch my brush to it, you can see like it barely even gets on my brush. It's practically like a Jello almost. So you never want to paint that on. If you paint that onto something, you're going to have the chalkiest mess you've ever seen in your life. So I'm going to get some of this out. You can see how thick that is. I'm just going to put it on this little palette thing, just the back of a tuft thing. But, you know, we're fancy on this channel. So I'm going to put that on the palette, and then I'm going to take some of the end in yellow, and I'm going to thin this Avril and Sunset with the end in yellow. This is always a problem that I had whenever I would thin paints, is that I'd add water or mixing medium or whatever, and it would thin the paint, but you're also, when you thin the paint, you're not just making it more viscous, but you're making the ratio of pigment to liquid, or pigment to binder less also. But because I'm using this contrast paint to thin it, there's so much pigment in the contrast paint that thinning it with that will actually increase the amount of pigment in the color while also thinning it down. So then I'm not going to lose, and in fact I'm going to increase the amount of pigment in my yellow while also thinning it. So then I can just come straight onto this blue and have really good solid coverage with one coat. And that's almost unheard of with yellows. It's rare that you can get a yellow to cover in a single coat. And this may be a widely accepted technique places. I don't know. I am confident that I thought this up on my own to thin paints with the contrast paints. And I am frankly pretty proud of myself because it allows me to paint yellows in a single pass, and it works with any paint, but yellow is the big culprit there. So there's your coat of yellow paint over a dark blue color in a single pass. So that yellow's done. Eventually there will be a transfer on there. I think it might be Bjorn is the Space Wolf character whose dudes run around with yellow on their shoulder pads. I don't remember. The guy who I'm painting these for, he knows. He'll do it. So then I think I will put the base coat down for the tabard, which is going to be my go-to white recently of Vampiric Highlight. And then I'm going to move on to the glowing purple of the plasma. And I'm actually going to base coat the plasma glow first so that it can be drying while I'm painting the tabard. And Volkite guns, unlike plasma guns, have this little power pack here in the back, which I always do in the same color as the power or the like coil up here. I say always. In Warhammer 30K, Volkite is a lot more prevalent, so I have a decent amount of experience painting Volkite. And that way it helps also distinguish it from a plasma gun. If you just see a coil up front painted in a color on a gun, you think it's a plasma gun first look. But having the second batch of color there will make you stop and look and think, hey, that looks a little bit different. And so it'll be better in the long run. I'm also just going to base his eyes real quick so I can come back later with the contrast paint and get them. There's that. Whew. Missed like a champ on that. That's okay. We'll fix that later. So then I'm just going to base coat the tabard and all the purity seals in this white color. And this will be the base that we put the contrast paint on top of. Just going to do this. And this part's going to be tricky. I may have to go back and redo my silver in some parts because honestly just not worth the time to try to 100% get in between these two colors. So I'm just going to be messy and go back and fix it with the silver later. Realistically, what I should have done is thought that through and painted this white first and then come back and done the silver so I don't have to go back to the silver again, but it's okay. I'll make the mistakes on stream so you don't have to make them in real life. Implying streaming is not real life, I guess. I don't know. I'm just going to get the back of the tabard here. Close the end in yellow. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Just sitting there, judging me silently. Open paint pot. Especially the contrast stuff. A, because if you knock it over, it'll get everywhere. And not only that, it's freaking expensive. You knock a contrast paint over, it's like losing a child, practically. Alright. Purity seals. They need to be white. I'm doing the wax part of the purity seal and the parchment part because both of those are going to be contrasted. So this will make it easier for that contrast to do its job. Just getting the back of that one. I'll get this one. And I think these are the only two purity seals on him, but we're going to check. He may have a third one somewhere. Let's see. Oh my god, he's got a third and a fourth one. This guy. Man, he's like... Maybe he was a captain, but when GW put him in the box, they were like, sorry, dude, we already have a captain. We can't have two captains in this box. You're going to have to get a demotion. And he's like, well, that's fine, but I'm keeping my Volkite gun and all my purity seals. Oh, he's got a fifth! He's got 5 purity seals. This guy, he is pure. Let me tell you. He is pure. There's nothing that is going to get to this man's heart and heresy him. I guess besides the Curse of the Wolfen, which he already would have. I don't know. Whatever. Irrelevant. So I think this is the last purity seal. Thought he had 2. Turns out he has 5. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's just make sure he doesn't have a 6th hidden somewhere. He does not, it appears. All right. I'm just going to do a second coat on this mid part here. All right, so that's all base coated. I'm going to grab the bronze again now, which again is the brass scorpion. And I'm going to grab the part that I missed, which is this. I think this is a Terminator honor. That's what it looks like to me on that, on these. They all have it. All of these new guys have that thing. And I don't know if it's Terminator honors or if it's just some, like, these new Primaris are part of like the Vanguard were their own type of Marine. Maybe these guys are, I don't know. But they all seem to have it. I haven't actually looked if the normal guys have it or not. The Assault Intercessors. I'll have to check on that to see if they have that also. If they have it, then it can't be Terminator honors. I can't imagine that the entire company would be granted Terminator honors like that. So, Slaneshi Hooters Bar. What? Just out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, Slaneshi Hooters Bar. Great. Just what we need. All right. I wonder if speaking of Hooters, I wonder if the wings in 40K are good. I wonder if they even have wings in 40K. I like to think they do. Oh, Fenrisian Ale. Don't bring that up. If you guys don't know what Fenrisian Ale is, I was told, anyway, by a somewhat reliable source, that a person on YouTube recreated Fenrisian Ale using absinthe, Everclear, and Jägermeister, I think, was the third one. Which to me doesn't sound like anything I'd want to put in my body. I don't think I'd want to put any of those 3 things alone in my body, let alone mixed together. But I suppose when you're a space wolf, you can do what you want. I was distracted by Fenrisian Ale. I got the Gorthor Brown, and I am doing all the leather parts of this guy. The belt, the pistol holster, and the pouches on his back will be Gorthor Brown. That's what I'm gonna start bringing some Fenrisian Ale to tournaments and offering it to my opponent. Get free wins left and right. No, I don't know why my opponents are unconscious, Mr. Judge. But I will take the free win. I wonder if there's rules for that. If your opponent becomes unconscious, do you automatically win? Do you have to play out your turns? How does that work? I don't know. Alrighty. Just gotta get up there. Viking Blood Mead. Again, sounds like something I don't want to put in my body. Doesn't sound like it would kill me, like Fenrisian ale would. You won't need to bribe me with ale to win, but I would gladly accept it. Hey, now we're talking. Alright, that's all the brown that's going to be on him. I'm going to now do... Actually, what I'm now going to do is check the time. 1:51. Whew! 9 minutes to get this guy done. Alright, we're going to go speed mode from here on out. So I'm going to get some... Not that color. I'm going to get some Agros Dunes contrast paint. And everything that's cloth color, or cloth or parchment, is getting that on it. This is gonna be a race. Oh, too much paint on the brush. We're just gonna completely coat all this stuff in this color, and it's gonna look too dark, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna fix it. Get in there. Just gonna go all over it. Dip him. I'm not dipping him. I do not have the skills for the dip. There are some people who embraced the dip and learned how to make the dip look good. I am not one of those people. All right. I do enjoy the all caps from the chat, though. Dip him. That's that amuses me. All right, purity seal. All right, done. Did I get every purity seal? 1, 2, 3. Oh, missed a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tabard. Done. All right, we're gonna let that dry. I'm gonna fix the silver, which is I've lost the silver. Ironbreaker again. I'm going to fix the silver real quick. And then I'm going to do something. I'll do the plasma glow. Or whoa, I did the thing that I said people do. Not the plasma glow. I'm going to do the Volkite glow. All right, so we're going to get... I've lost it. We're going to get some Magos purple. Nope. Volupus pink. Gonna get some of that. And we're gonna put it on this Volkite gun here. Everywhere we base coated white earlier, we're gonna put it there. And this is not going to be the final color of our Volkite, but this is going to be to make sure that if we miss any of our actual color, we won't leave white hanging out there at the bottom. It'll just be a darkish pinkish color. All right, so that's done. That has to dry for a second. So let's move on to the red. We're going to do the red on all the purity seals and his eyeballs. I'm going to grab the Blood Angels contrast paint. And just going to get the eyeball there. And I'm going to get the eyeball here. And then I'm going to get all the purity seals. The wax part of the purity seals anyway. And you want to, when you're doing these, you want to make sure the red goes on thick. Maybe even thicker than you might do other contrast paint, so that you really get the depth of the wax seal that's been pushed in to the wax. So we're going to get all these. I've done 3. There's 5. Oh, they're on the shield. Like, I know they're somewhere here. Alright, that's that. Because I'm going to hate myself if I don't do it, I'm going to clean up the blue around his eyeballs right now. And by the time I do that, the plasma... God, the Volkite should be dry enough that we can move on to the next step. Just going to clean up his eyeballs here. Get rid of that. Much better. All right. So then I'm going for a purple Volkite here. So I'm going to take some Gene Steel or purple. Camera, you can do it. Gene Steel or purple. And I'm going to paint that on the ridges of the Volkite. Sort of like edge highlighting. Just on those ridges there. And then on the raised bits here. And I just want to, as you can see, just want to make sure that the edge highlighting kind of blends into each other in the middle there, so that it looks like a line of energy going between the ridges. So I'm going to let that sit for a second. I'm going to grab my Nuln Oil, and I'm going to put this all over the silver, brown, and black parts of this miniature. And that'll help get the depth of the metal bits as well as the leather. And then on the black parts, Citadel paint has a very semi-gloss finish. While Nuln Oil, or all GW shades, have a matte finish. So even though this isn't changing the color of the black very much at all, it's going to apply a different finish to the black and look much more matted, which is how we want it. How to Drink is apparently the channel that made Fenrisian Ale. Seems sketchy. Fenrisian Ale, not the channel. I'm sure the channel is just fine. Alright. I'm just discovering that I forgot to do his scabbard. That was meant to be Gorthor Brown. I'll do it at some point. So I'm just going to get all this, everything that's Gorthor. Make sure I got a good amount of Nuln Oil on it. Then I'm going to get up here his Iron Halo. I'm not sure when Lieutenant started to have Iron Halos, but apparently... Oh, right, we decided this guy was a captain. And then he got demoted for the box set. So yeah, it would make sense he would have an Iron Halo. It's all coming together now. Now we're getting it. Alright, then we just have to do the gun. This is where we pray that the purple is dry enough. I'm pretty sure it is, but... We're just going to not get too much in the purple/pink, but we're going to get a little bit in there. Of the Nuln Oil, that is. Gotta do that. Just to make the transitions between the metal and the glow look better. Alright. Then we're going to highlight all the... Actually, no. First, we will do the wash that goes over the bronze. For this, I'm going to use Fireslayer Flesh Contrast. Fireslayer is one of the contrast paints that are a little bit less pigmented. They're more transparent. So this acts as a nice, basically a shade over the copper. Just to darken it a little bit, redden it a little bit more than it already is. And it really helps it pop. Do that, and then do it all over the shield. It also mats it down a little bit also, because even though metal is supposed to be shiny, you don't want it to be so shiny next to everything else that it sticks out and looks not good. So you want it to shine a little bit, but not be chromed, basically. Unless you're going for that sort of thing. If you're going for a chromed look, then yeah, do it. Just going to get that. And then the last thing of copper is this on the backpack. All right, now we're going to go back and highlight the cloth. For that, I'm going to use scale 75 birch. And as I said last time I used this, normally you might want to thin this a little bit, but because we're doing it on cloth, cloth has a texture, has a weave. It doesn't matter if it's a little raggedy, because it'll just help sell the fact that it's not a perfectly smooth surface. And like I said before, highlighting cloth, you want to make sure to always move your brush in the same direction, because generally on a piece of cloth, the weave does not change direction. The weave is in a direction, and it's in that direction for the entire garment. You obviously can get different weave directions when you start stitching things together, like adding a sleeve for in a shirt, for instance. But in this case, this guy is just wearing a piece of cloth, so the weave would be in one direction. So I'm just always pulling my brush down when I'm painting the highlights on that. Says the guy with chrome gray knights. Yeah, like I said, if you're going for chrome, then yeah, leave it chrome. But I'm not going for chrome on this guy, so. Let me get the back of this. Just gonna highlight that up. Alright, and then I'm going to do the purity seals. I'm just going to come across in a couple spots and then do the edges. And that will sell the effect of a highlighted purity seal. Same with that one. Do this, just come across in a couple spots. If you want to get real crazy with purity seals, you can, of course, do text on them. I'm not trying to get that crazy, especially for this project, but it's definitely something that you can explore if you want to really make your purity seals pop. All right, and that's them highlighted. Really almost painted another layer on, but I call it highlighting because we leave little bits in here of darker color as a highlight. All right, so then I'm going to do the Volkite Glow. And now this time I am going to use my Magos Purple contrast paint. And this is one of the really thin contrast paints. So I'm just going to go nuts and put it all over the top of the gun here. Basically almost as thick as I want. And that will give the effect that the Volkite, not the plasma, the Volkite is glowing. And then, as soon as I have that, I'm just going to take my wet brush, no color on it, and I'm just going to swipe down on the parts that I put the purple on. Just so there's a hint of purple, but not so much purple that the whole thing just looks like it's painted. So now we have a hint that something is glowing there, but it's not just completely purple. All right, and then I'm going to take, well, how are we looking for time here? 2:04. All right, so we're going to go a little over. I'm going to take my Steel Legion Drab, and I'm just going to highlight the Gorthor Brown. Just going to do a straight up edge highlight on this. This would be another opportunity for a dry brush, but like I said, I'm trying to match models that I painted several years ago. They were edge highlighted there, so they'll be edge highlighted here. But leather is an excellent opportunity for dry brushing. Just gonna edge highlight it. I'm going to grab almost every edge on this because it's so small. I'm going to grab a tiny little bit of color on the belt there and then do these pouches. All right. And then for this smaller amount of copper, like on the backpack here and on the wrist, doesn't really need to be highlighted. But on this copper, it's a large chunk, and obviously the shield is a large chunk. So I'm going to highlight it just a little bit. And I'm going to use a paint that I cannot currently see on my table. But it is a gold from scale 75. Oh, here it is. What gold is this? It is Dwarven gold from scale 75. Doesn't want to focus. There we go. Dwarven gold. And we're just going to highlight the copper with this. Sort of like an edge highlight, but more like an overbrushing, I guess you'd say. Overbrushing is sort of like dry brushing, but you don't get the paint off your brush as much. You're not painting a full-on layer on. You're leaving some of the underlying coat, but there still is a full line of color being applied. So just like that, just to give it some interest. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to do just the top of the skull like this. In that, I'm going to do these lines, at least near the tops of them, like this. I'm going to do along here, up there, and then across these skulls here. And then I'm just going to dot in a couple places, just like that. Just so it's highlighted a little bit and doesn't just look monochromatic. And I'm going to grab the top of this guy's skull here too. There's that. All right, and then I'm just going to take a look at the miniature and decide what else he needs. I am going to do the scabbard. I'll have to do that. Do the scabbard and that shoulder icon there. And then we have this shield that we can mess with. I don't know the symbols of the Space Wolves. Don't know what their heraldic symbols are. But when in doubt, a vertical stripe is the way to go. So I'm just going to get some of this white again. The same white I used before, which is Vampiric Highlight from Reaper. And I'm just going to do a vertical stripe on this dude. I'm going to turn this guy upside down because I don't want the purity seal getting in the way of my brush strokes. So ever so carefully, we're going to do a vertical stripe roughly in the middle of this shield here. Just like that. Gonna get a little less paint on the brush and then marry it right up against this purity seal. Like that. And then get it to come down from behind the purity seal right there. And then just fix up this edge real quick. Make it a little wider, I think. Yeah, that's better. Then that shield looks like we actually gave a damn about it and did something to it. Alright. I guess I'll do the scabbard now. I think I'll call the stream here, though. I've been going for a little more than an hour. I'll finish this guy up later and post some pictures. Oh, I lied. I'm going to do one last thing because I always like to have Grey Knight Steel on stream. So I'm going to get some Grey Knight Steel and I'm going to highlight the silver. And that'll be the last thing we do on stream today. Just going to do the same thing I did with the gold, sort of overbrushing, getting a little bit here and there just for some visual interest. Definitely want to get it up here on the spikes of the Iron Halo. I'm not sure what painting steel onto an Iron Halo says about it, but I'm going to get the highlights of this gun also. Right there. right in there. Gonna get the back of the Iron Halo. All right, and scabbard bit, scabbard bit, scabbard bit, and I think that'll be that. I'll finish him up later, and he'll be done. I just have a couple little bits left, and he'll be ready to go. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll be back on Wednesday at the same time, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, if you live in a different time zone. Not sure what I'm going to be painting yet. Something out of the Indomitus box, I'm sure. Probably a Necron, just to mix it up. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.